So how do we deal with a narcissist? Is there someone in your life who would come under that umbrella? It could be a parent, could be a family member, could be a partner, could be a boss, someone at work. As we explored in that previous video, the psychological and spiritual causes, if you like, of what narcissism is, well, they're very difficult people to deal with. So if we're looking at it in the context of that last video, we would say these are people who are more driven by fear than love. In fact, a narcissist really is someone so far down the pointy end of that range that they're really dominated by fear. They're coming solely from fear. So how do we deal? What do we do? How do we manage someone like that in our life? So there's two aspects to this. The first thing is always love. Love is the best defense, and it's always love that heals. So for our own sake, for our own benefit, coming back to love is basically remembering that everyone's a unique child of the divine, which makes us all siblings. So this brother or sister who might be absolutely impossible to deal with is still someone that we can love on a spiritual level. Maybe not on a human level, it can be impossible to do that, but on a deeper level, we can pray for them, we can wish well for them, we can hold them in loving thoughts. And boy, do they need those loving thoughts, because of course someone who's stuck in fear like that, stuck in their separated egoic mind like that, well, it's a living hell actually. But the problem is they make it a living hell for everyone else around them, and that's why it's we have to manage them as well. But the first thing I'd invite you to consider is, well, there's no good hating on them. It's no good trying to fight them or attack or whatever, We're never going to get revenge. We're never going to get the satisfaction of them getting it either. Remember, someone who's that stuck in their weakness doesn't have the capacity for self-reflection. They're not capable of looking at themselves honestly. They can't do it. You might get a surface level acknowledgement. You might get the sorry but their defenses, their capacity doesn't allow for them to take ownership, which you might assume everyone can do. As a stronger person, you might assume that someone with a bit of encouragement and being confronted might be able to own it and then change or apologise properly. But remember, someone like this is so stuck in fear and guilt and rage and weakness and separation that they're totally serving themselves. They're totally in that direction of serving themselves. And so you don't get that reflection. You just don't get that capacity, I call it, capacity for self-awareness, for reflection, for ownership, for taking responsibility. So we need to accept that, need to acknowledge and understand that, they're never going to change. They're never going to be able to get it, own it, apologise genuinely, make changes in their life. Sometimes there might be a softening over time as they get old. Often it gets harder. They get more crystallised and even more difficult in their fear. But understanding what's going on in the psychology there is very powerful, because that releases you from that expectation that if I do the right thing or say the right thing or nudge them in the right way, that you're going to get that awareness and change. I think it took me 10 years of professional practice to really work this out, that some people just can't do it. They just don't have the capacity for that insight or self-reflection. So we're dealing with someone who's, too limited in their capacity to get that. They're too stuck in fear. They're still driven by the ego. And so love means, on a deep level, you just hold them in love. It's like wishing them well. They're a brother, they're a sister, under the divine. And so we, by holding them in that way and praying, if that word works for you, is a way of releasing yourself from the lower human parts of us that just want to kill them, the lower human parts that want to, get some sort of payback or, protest or get change or, insist on that. Better we go to the higher levels of our being, because that sets us free from all those lower, more human energies or impulses in us that will just cause us stress and make us miserable and won't help in any way, by the way, doesn't get us anywhere. Sets us free, and on some level, on some deep energetic level, it's sending seeds of light or, the possibility of change. It's sort of sending it in that direction. Those seeds may not sprout this lifetime, but it's going to help. It's going to make more of a difference. So come back to love, come back to calm. But of course, people like this are impossible. They can be dangerous. They can be, so abusive. They can be so controlling. They can be so bullying. They can be so manipulative, gaslighting and undermining, because they're just living from fear. They're absolutely in separated minds. So it's all about, what do I need for my survival? No one else matters in that. No one else registers in that. It's like other people don't even exist. You're only there to serve them because they're totally in service to self. And so they can be so destructive. And even if they're not actively attacking or whatever, even just being in the same room is hard work, because, of course, all that shadow material that they've got in their field, all that fear, all that rage, all that guilt, all that grief, very difficult energies, well, they're holding none of it. None of it. And so it's all being radiated out. The weaker the person, the more narcissistic they are, the more difficult their energy field is. And it's very hard to be exposed to that as a lighter person, as a more open person, as a more love-based person. It's very uncomfortable to be around that. We would expect it to be uncomfortable. We'd want it to be uncomfortable. We wouldn't want to be comfortable around that, because that would mean that was where we're at. The contrast of it is very challenging. It's kind of like being pulled down into a really low frequency, very hard to be around. And so we need boundaries. The word I tend to use for people in consultations is management. We can't get resolution. We're not going to get improvement in relationship. We're not going to get that understanding you'd get with someone on a similar, more mature, love-based level. There you get growth. There you get healing. There you get, real progress and resolving issues and moving forward. But with someone like this, we're never going to get that. They're not capable of the maturity, or the ownership that requires. And so we need boundaries. We can love them from that principle, just, in our own private space, hold them in light as much as we can, but we still might have to have very clear, solid boundaries. I mean, sometimes people are so toxic to be around, we just need to have nothing to do with them. And this can include family members. This can include a parent that's just so destructive, so toxic. It's like, oh, well, I love you, but I can't have anything to do with you. Often it's not quite that extreme. Often it's in that grey area where, okay, well, I can have something to do with you, but it's got to be on my terms. I call it bandwidth. It's like the bandwidth becomes very narrow, becomes very limited. I have something to do with that person at Christmas or at family birthdays or something. I know I can't have conversation with them about anything deep and meaningful. Not spiritual, not psychological. They just can't tolerate it. They can't kind of go there. They might have all the language. They might be a psychologist. They might be excuse me, I want to swear, but they might be a guru in their own mind. But it's all shopfront, of course. It's all just the language. They've learnt the jargon. They know the language they can put on that front, but it doesn't have the depth. And then we find that out quite soon if we're discerning with people, and that, there isn't quite the substance in there. So if we've got someone like that in our life, if you have someone like that in your life, I would say work out how much you need to manage them, how firm the boundary needs to be, where it needs to be for you. Because by narrowing that bandwidth, remember, as a more open, loving person, there's this sort of assumption, surely they can get it and understand, and if I just explain it properly, surely they're going to get it and take ownership, and we can improve things. This is it comes back to the pleaser narcissist pattern that we've been exploring in childhood trauma reactions and different types of people. Very common for the overgiver to wind up with someone like this. And that's a hard thing to kind of heal out of, because we're enabling it. We kind of get in this codependent, stuck relationship. But let's say you've already worked on that a bit. I'd love to help you with that. I hope this material, I'm giving is useful in this. You might need deeper therapy, do more specific process work to get to your history and keep healing. But it's a very key thing to shift the understanding in your mind to realize that, they're never going to get it. They're never going to be what I need them to be. It's like a child with a parent. I've got to keep trying, No. They're never going to be able to give better than that. And the best they can do might be absolutely lousy, So in the acceptance, the understanding of the psychology of that, even the spiritual dynamics of that, then we can adjust things. Okay, I can accept that that's the best they can do. And that's not something I want much in my life. Wouldn't be good for me. They might want it. They're not going to like it necessarily. Usually they won't like it because there's no self-reflection. There's no understanding about why they might be being excluded or dialed down or whatever. They're never going to get that. Don't expect them to understand that. But for your healing, your journey, your healing journey, your self-love journey is realizing that, it's not my job to fix the impossible. We hand that one over, hey? We hand that over to the divine, and all in good time. Might be a few more 1,000 years, but eventually that person will, wake up to the light. But for now, hold them in love, and that's for your own higher frequency. But boundaries and management, so that you're not dealing with the energetic attack. You're not dealing with, outright attack or manipulation or whatever it is, but even just energetically not having to put up with that much. It's natural to sort of gravitate away from those difficult energies. So just to anchor all this in, I'd invite us into a little bit of process now. So just take a deep breath, drop in, close your eyes if you wish, just letting your awareness settle into a deeper place within. Notice the support of the chair, the sofa, wherever your body's being supported. Just feel where your body's making contact with that support. Just know that you're safe. Know that you have permission to explore this issue as you bring to mind someone who might be very difficult, might be the absolute bane of your existence. Someone who fits into that category. A service to self person rather than service to others. Have you got someone in mind? And maybe it's a short history, maybe it's a long history you've had with this person. If it's a partner, it might be going on for years. If it's a parent, my goodness, it goes right back to your conception. So it's very deep. I'd invite you into deeper therapeutic work for that. Just when you think about that person, bring them to mind and just notice the bodily reaction. Just notice the sensations in your body, the feelings, emotion comes up in response to having them in your mind, the thoughts, the images, maybe memories, pictures, faces. And firstly, I'd invite you to set up a boundary of love. Imagine this bright light radiating out from your heart of hearts throughout your field, your aura, if you like, till it gets to the outer shell. Maybe it's a few feet around your body. And imagine this light becoming this impenetrable barrier of love. One way to picture it is like a thick crystal dome all the way around you, like an egg from top to bottom on every side. And the nature of this barrier, this defensive field, this shell, the nature of this is unconditional love. And so love gets through. Any love coming to you from outside gets through without a problem. But anything that's not love bounces off the outside, like an arrow hitting a metal shield, just falls harmlessly to the ground. Just imagine yourself beautifully cocooned in this shield, this protective barrier of love and light. Feel that, see that. You can put different colours to that. Some people like to fill that with gold or a violet flame on the outside. That's very good for transmuting low energies. Or it might just be a clear, crystal clear field all around you. And now with that in place, bring that person back to mind. And just notice how their projections, it's like they can't help themselves. Everything's constantly being projected. Doesn't matter what they're saying or the look on their face, there's this energetic projection happening, more or less, all the time. And just imagine that energy just bouncing off. It doesn't get through anymore. You're certainly not taking it on or thinking it's yours or blaming yourself. You're not doing that. It's just bouncing off. It's falling to the ground or going back to them. And you might notice the look on their face. They may be a bit alarmed by that. They might be a bit surprised by that. They may not like that because they might be used to being able to project their stuff onto you, especially if you've grown up with this kind of dynamic. But not now, not anymore. Those energies just bouncing off harmlessly, going back to them. And you might imagine that person off in the distance having a real tantrum around this, going off tap, having a hissy fit. You can imagine them. They might be very angry and indignant and gruff that they can't offload their crap onto you. Well, too bad. And you're in this place of power, because love is power, not force, power. Thank you, David Hawkins. You're in this place of love, and love says to that person, I'm so sorry. I was mistaken in the past. I thought I could fix that. I thought maybe that was mine. I thought that was up to me to do something about. But I realise now that that's not mine, that's yours. And I can't fix that for you. There's nothing I could do to fix that for you. And if I'm carrying it, well, you don't have access to it. So that's stopping you working on it. So with love, I hand back anything of yours I'm carrying. With love, I let your stuff bounce back off my shield, my boundary, my barrier, back to you. Because then it goes back to you, and that gives you a chance to work on it. It's with love I let you feel your own stuff, to sit with your own stuff. And notice the look on their face. You won't get that mature ownership. Oh, you're so right, I'm so sorry. You won't get that. You'll get, you know, or whatever. But it's tough love. It's the most loving, helpful thing you could possibly do for that person, by the way, is let them stew in their juices. Because pain's the motivator, suffering's the motivator. And eventually one day, and you can say this to them, hey, I wish for you that day where you wake up and say, oh, there's got to be a better way. Maybe there's a different way. That's when they'll have a crack in their shell and they'll reach out to the light, which is always there, beckoning them to wake up and start to come home. So feel what it's like to just radiate that love from within this beautiful protective boundary. And feel how good it feels to lower the expectations, dial them right down to the level of their narcissism, which might be right down to base level. Dialing down that expectation, narrowing that bandwidth. Ooh, gee, the best they can do is a really awful fear-based place. And so by changing that bandwidth, by reducing that bandwidth down to the appropriate level for that person, you get to choose how much, if any, you give to them of your time and attention. You choose how much of you you're willing or even want or even feel safe to present of you. You're certainly not going to throw your pearls before swine anymore. You're certainly not going to waste the fullness of you and all the love and wisdom and joy of you before someone who can't reciprocate. So just notice, what's the bandwidth? Is it down to nothing? Is the person that toxic and that immature that you need to walk away completely? Perhaps. Or is it someone that you would have just a limited contact with on your terms? But you can do that from this place of love with your protective boundary in place. It's safe to do that. You're probably not going to spend lots of time with that person, but you can do it on your terms. Just notice how that feels. How does that feel compared to perhaps the way you were interacting with that person previously? And you thank that person for coming forward and they just merge back into the light. And it's just you feeling the love of your greatest self, the love of Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, the love of Spirit, the light of Spirit that shines through the very essence of you. And feel that sense of empowerment, strength, peace. You in your protective shield, your crystal clear dome, filled with love and light. Feel that as you bring that back into the room, just coming back into awakened consciousness very gently, opening the eyes, deepening the breath, coming back into a gentle waking awareness, and bring that feeling with you. Notice how that feels to be protected in the love that you are. How was that? How did you go? So well done. So this is a very common issue, comes up a lot. I think it's coming up more now as we see this timeline split really highlighting where people are on their journey. Are they more love-based or more fear-based? We're seeing this kind of escalate. And so I'd invite you to have a look at a few more things. If you want to explore the hypno thing more, you might enjoy my Power of Mind course, the audio program, which explains the psychology of self-hypnosis and takes you through guided practice, starting with the very, very first basic steps of that I learned many years ago when I started my hypno training, and just explains what's going on, talks about the psychology, the science of it, and then guided practice, 7 different pairs of process taking you really deep, just if you want to get kind of more comfortable, better at this self-hypnosis sort of process that we've just done. Lots of love to you. Hope that was helpful. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Your comments, your likes, your subscribes and following and all that helps encourage me to keep going in this service. And see you next time.